Hi guys, welcome or welcome back again to my YouTube channel. How are you guys doing? If you're new to my channel and my space, hi, my name is Becca. I'm an immigrant nurse originally from Ghana in West Africa. I'm practicing as a registered nurse here in the United Kingdom. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about how to revalidate your NMC PIN, okay? So if you're a nurse in the UK, you know that we have something we call the revalidation. So every year you have to pay a registration fee, which is a £120. And then in 3 years or after 3 years or within 3 years, you have to do what we call the revalidation. So the revalidation is basically submitting facts, feedback, evidence-based practice of every incidences or anything that has happened, occurrences, trainings that has happened in the last 3 years of you practicing as a registered nurse. It is very straightforward, but for beginners that are doing their revalidation for the first time, I remember when I was doing my first revalidation, I really struggled because I didn't get that support. I didn't understand a lot of things, and that is why I'm doing this video. It is very easy to do a revalidation. However, what I would advise you to do is that to keep a portfolio or a file right from the word go. So when you have passed your OSCEs or when you have come out as a registered nurse, get a file, a separate file or a unique file. In that file, what you're going to be doing is that you're going to be keeping evidences of every occurrence that has happened, okay? So let's say if you have done trainings, you've gone for a training or you've been given a certificate, you print a copy of that certificate and keep it in that file. When you have had a practice related feedback, let's say you've gone to work somewhere, somebody has praised you, somebody have given you a card, a letter, an email saying thank you for your hard work, thank you for being a diligent nurse. Keep those letters and emails in your revalidation file. Now, when you're doing revalidation, the things that you need to submit here is that you should be able to state that you have worked 450 hours in the past 3 years. So if you're even doing part-time job, you can achieve 450. If you're doing a full-time job, you're doing 37.5 contracted hours per week. It means in a month you are doing 150 hours. It means by 3 months you have worked 450 hours. So by the time you're doing revalidation, even if you've worked only 3 months, you can submit your revalidation. If you're doing part-time, if you do even one shift a week, which is 12 hours, you multiply it by the 3 years, which will give you the hours you need for your revalidation. So it's easy for you to get, even if you're an agency nurse. And when we talk about the practice hours, it's not only related to the clinical setting. So let's say, for instance, you are a nurse in research, you are a nurse in education, you are a nurse in the community setting, wherever you find yourself, being in research, being in education, being it in the community, being it in the corporate world, whether you're a corporate nurse, whatever kind of nurse you are, once you have had patient interaction or you have had is in a clinical setting, doesn't matter the setting it is, you qualify to revalidate yourself. So when you have had this 450 hours of practice related practice hours, you also need 35 hours of trainings at least. These trainings can be self-paced trainings, so trainings that you have done yourself. Maybe you went online, you read a literature from RCN, you read something somewhere. It's all part of training. If you have done a face-to-face training, if you've done a training on Zoom, if you've done a supervision with your supervisor, if you've done a meeting at work, anything that you have done that is face-to-face or self-paced, that learning took place, there is something that you learned, is part of training. Out of this 35 hours, 25 hours of it should be face-to-face, okay, or should be involving interactive. You should have been there. So whether it's via Zoom, via Teams, whether it's a supervision you did with your supervisor, one-to-one, end of year meeting, appraisals, PDRs, it counts towards that 25 hours. Also, you need 5 practice related feedback. So 5 people that are not closely related to you should give you feedback on your practice, whether positive or negatively. They should tell you, oh, when we came to you, or when you looked after me, you didn't do this, you did that. Whether positive or negative is a feedback. You must get 5 of this. You can get it from your patient relatives, your resident, your managers, your colleagues, your junior colleagues, your senior colleagues, visitors, the public, anything, as far as it's a feedback, but you can evidence it. It should be in written form. Sometimes they tell you to submit even if it's verbal, but how can you justify that it is verbal? So let that person put it in writing. Even if it's on a piece of paper, just tear a piece of paper and that person writes and sign with their name to evidence it. It is a practice related feedback. Now what you need to also do is that you need to write 5 reflective discussions. So reflective discussion is anything that has happened, being it in a training, being it in a practice, positive, negative, being it in supervision, something has happened, you want to reflect on it, something didn't go well in your practice, you made an error, you made a mistake, that's something happened, it's an incident, and you want to reflect on it. You have to write 5 of these. I'm going to be discussing this in details, so watch this video right on to the end. So guys, with the requirement for the practice hours, if you're a registered nurse, you need 450 hours. If you're a midwife, you need same 450 hours. And nurse associate needs 450. And those that have multiple registrations, you combine all your qualifications, multiply by 450. Okay, so if you're a nurse and a midwife together, you need 900. If you're a nurse, a midwife, and a nurse associate, you need 1,350. So that is what you need to achieve within 3 years of having, having been able to register or to revalidate. If you didn't meet these hours, you have to do what we call the return to practice program, or you have to take a test of competence before the date of your revalidation or before the date of your application. And I'll leave the link to all this in my description box. You should also make sure that the areas that you've practiced are areas that involves either direct patient care, managing team, teaching, or helping to shape or run a service. And it shouldn't be something that you've originally done when you were joining the register. It can be something different. The next is the CPD, which is the training hours. You need 35 hours of training within these 3 years. Out of that, 20 of them needs to be participatory learning or face-to-face learning. Yeah. So when you're writing these CPDs, you have to link these CPDs with the code of nursing or with the code of practice. So let's say you've attended a moving and handling training. How is it related to the code? It's helped you to maintain patient safety. It's helped you to practice effectively. It's helped you to maintain professionalism. Yeah. So these are some of the things that you write. It also has a form that you can fill in, which makes things a lot easier. And it's better to print this NMC standard forms and then either type it in or you fill it out. So any trainings that you've gone or any discussions that you've had with your line manager, anything that's related to learning has taken place. It could be meetings, it could be supervisions, could be anything. That learning has taken place. Even if it's self-paced learning, it can count towards CPD. The next is practice related feedback. So here you must have 5 people giving you practice related feedback, and you shouldn't disclose these people's identity. You shouldn't say anything that is going to disclose these people's identity. So if it's a colleague, you can just say a colleague. If it's a patient, you can just say a patient or a service user. If it's a member of the public, a relative, just say it as that and let them write it for you. Yeah. So the next is reflective account, where you write any occurrences or anything that has happened. For instance, in relation to your CPD, in relation to practice, any error, any positive thing you did, anything that's made change take place. Basically, you learned something from it. You want to reflect. Let's say you have gone for a training and the training went well. It added something to your knowledge. You can write that training and reflect on it and write how it is related to the practice. NMC has a very standard filled in already reflective account that you can also look on to give you an idea. It doesn't need to be an academic style of piece of writing. It's just something very simple. Can be 3 lines, couple of lines. It doesn't really matter. You can either type it in or write it, print the form and do it, manually, write it in. It shouldn't be anything professional. Then this is the reflective discussion. So the reflective discussion needs to be done with another NMC registrant. So it can be a registered nurse, a midwife, or a nurse associate, somebody whose name is in the register. So this one must be somebody who is in the register. The person needs to discuss with you and make sure that everything is fine. Learning has taken place indeed, and you have all the elements of revalidation has been recorded in there. It also has a form that the person that you've discussed with need to fill in. They need to write their NMC PIN number, their name and full details and everything. The next is declaration of health and character. So here you're just saying that you're a person of good health. And then with the character, if you've had any conviction, criminal offenses, which include conditional discharge or any formal caution stated, there are some that NMC will investigate. There are some that they will not investigate, okay? But you just need to declare it because that means that you are a trustworthy person. Yeah, you just need to declare it. And when you go onto the website and you are doing this, you are just filling it in. It's a tick box. You don't need to write any essay or anything. You just need to keep all these papers because NMC can call you to ask you to submit them for evidence. So just keep them in your file. And here is the next is to have an indemnity insurance. So if you are self-employed, most of the times it's your employer that arranges for this indemnity insurance. But if you are self-employed, you have to go through a union to get your indemnity insurance registered, especially if you're like a full-time agency nurse, if you are doing only bank shift, if you are not fully employed, because usually if you are fully employed, it's the responsibility of your employer to arrange this indemnity cover or this professional indemnity insurance for you. And you need to ask your employer whether this has been put in place for you if it is not stated already in your contract. If not, and if you are self-employed, you need to go through your union to get this in place. Then the next thing is to have somebody to confirm. So this is what we call the confirmer. The confirmer can be different from the person that did your reflective discussion. But if you want things to be straightforward for you, it's better to use the same person, okay? So this confirmer needs to provide their name, their NMC, or if they're from other profession, their professional identification number, email, professional address, postcode. Here you do not need to add or use an NMC registrant. You can use any member of the list that I'm going to be mentioning because it's not everybody that is being supervised or that is working directly under the supervision of an NMC registrant or a registered nurse, midwife, or anything. So you can use a list of other NMC registrant as far as they are based in the UK and they do not have any direct relationship with you. They are not your family members. They are not your friends. And you can justify this. Or they are from any of these, professions that I'm going to be mentioning. You can use them. But if, as I said, if you want it to be straightforward for you, it's better to use the same person who is a nurse. If you have somebody who is a nurse already, it's better to use that same person who did your reflective discussion, to do this confirmation for you, which makes things easier. If you're doing a reflective discussion, if you put in the person's NMC PIN number, if it is wrong, the system will pick it up. So get the right PIN number and put it into the system to make your process straightforward for you. And you do not necessarily need to wait for the 3 years that your revalidation is due to do all this. You should do it within the 3 years so that things are easier for you when the 3 years is due. So these are the list of people that can do your confirmation for you. We've got a chiropodist, a chiropractor, dentist, doctor, dietitian, social worker, chemist, engineer, legal secretary, lawyer, judge, solicitor, police officer, teacher, surveyor, etc., etc. I'll leave all the